Good morning, everyone. Today we're going to practice what's called a vertical weld, and we're going to do the same method as we did before. We're going to get our vice grips and we're going to get our pencil, and we're going to set this thing up so that way we can do a vertical weld on the board. The vertical weld is a little bit different because we're not operating on a piece of paper on the table like we're used to, but we're actually doing literally what it's called. We're going to weld vertically, but we're going to weld vertically up and we're going to weld vertically down. We're also going to use different welding methods called a push weld and a pole weld. I'm going to show you the difference between the two of them, and you're going to have, you can use similar welding patterns, but the way you're going to angle the welding rod is going to be different depending upon if you're pushing the weld or pulling the weld. I'm going to show you what that means here in a minute. So the first thing we want to do is we want to do our piece of paper we've always done. We want to draw in our T-chart like we've always done. So we're going to have our T-chart like this, and we're going to pick two weld patterns. So I'm going to pick circles and zigzag. All right. Now that we've done our circles and our zigzag, now we can actually practice our weld pattern. Now, historically, I've always had you guys use a washer. And it's still possible to use a washer, but it's going to be very difficult. So I want you guys to give you guys a heads up that yes, I want you using the washer, but it is going to be a little bit tricky to do the washer. Actually, you won't be able to use the washer uh, the way I'm going to show you, depending how you're going to angle the welding rod. So I'm going to start with a push weld and a pole weld in the circular fashion. So we're putting our welding mask on, and I'm going to do a push weld vertical going down. I'm going to do a push weld vertical going down. I'm actually going to start at the top. I'm going to work my way down like this with my weld pattern. This is considered a push weld vertically going down. The next one is a pull weld going down. And our pulling weld, sorry, I had it backwards. This is pushing the weld. The first one was pulling the weld. So our first was pulling the weld. This is pushing the weld. Pushing the weld means that we have our welding rod pointing away from the actual weld pattern. Okay? So that's pushing the weld. This is pulling the weld. And this is starting from the top going down. The next thing we have is we want to do pushing the weld going up. So if we're going to push the weld going up, that's going to look like this. And if we're going to pull the weld going up, we can once again use our washer. And we're going to angle the pencil down. And you notice how the welding rod is pointing into the weld? This means we're pulling our weld, but we're going up this time. Okay? If we're going to do a zigzag, we're going to practice pulling the weld, doing a zigzag going down. And then we're going to practice pushing our weld, zigzag going down. Okay? And then we're going to practice pushing our weld going up. And then we're going to practice pulling our weld going up. Okay. I want you to have at least 2 runs of each. So at least 2 runs of pulling the weld going down, at least 2 runs of pushing the weld going down, 2 welds of pulling the weld going up, and 2 welds of pushing the weld going up. Same thing zigzag. We're going to do 2 runs of pulling the weld going down. We're going to do 2 runs of pushing the weld going down. We're going to do 2 welds of pulling the weld going up, and 2 welds of pulling the weld going up. So remember, pulling, pushing, pulling, pushing. Have that backwards. Pushing and pulling. Pulling, pushing, pushing, pulling. It's all going to be dependent upon how your electrode is actually angled against your welding surface. That's the assignment for today. I want you to practice weld patterns with each direction. Send me a screenshot once you're all done of the whole piece of paper. That's your credit for the day.